Well, you mentioned Jimmy Carter, so let's talk about Jimmy Carter.
I will do that.
Yes, ma'am.
Who enters into the play in a number of ways.
Yes.
Talk about the impetus for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Being a Georgia girl, he's one of our heroes. My dad actually worked at the Carter Center in Atlanta, Georgia. So Jimmy Carter was a person that I actually met a few times, and as a young kid was kind of that hero in the distance and this kind of grand Georgian of, So he actually was similar to Nan, who treats him kind of like her personal savior. Jimmy Carter's wit and wisdom, if you will, are recited throughout the play in times of when Nan is at most, at her weakest point, most vulnerable, her greatest need of advice and sage wisdom.
I mean, there's sort of the conflation of what would Jesus do, what would Jimmy Carter do?
Exactly.
Yes. WWJCD.
JCJC, I'm just going to say. So it's...
Oh my God, I never realized
Did
that.
you just figure that out?
Wow.
Jimmy Carter. I'm just going to say. Yeah.
Well done.
So, and it was one of those things that it makes sense for a Georgia girl to gravitate towards, a president. And looking back in Jimmy Carter's history, he actually has a lot of great sayings. He does deal with a lot of the outdoors, which this play is certainly about.
Yes.
And I think the biggest thing for Nan in kind of invoking his spirit and his wisdom is to think big. Like, he was a president of the United States. One term, but y'all, still, he was the president of the United States. So I think Nan goes, I can do that. I can change the world. I can follow my heart and make a difference, and go team. Go Team Carter.
Yes. It would not have been the same play if Nan was from Arkansas, because Bill Clinton does not have the same.
I don't think.
No.
That's right.
Much different play.
A very...
Oh,
Exit
my.
Pursued by an Intern. That's the next one.
That's the next one. Part 2.
And that Jimmy Carter was one of the more progressive presidents.
Exactly.
And he's from Georgia, which is
from
a nice, again, if you're talking about sort of inverting people's perceptions of what the state of Georgia is, you have to kind of contend with that.
Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, the play, like I said, my family has a cabin in North Georgia, which is kind of where I set this. And actually, our lead actress, Erin Gilly, is from like 30 minutes away from my parents' cabin, thus where the play takes place. So she's bringing some true heart to the role. But Jimmy Carter actually goes and gets barbecue right around where my cabin is. So it all just falls together.
Yeah.
I'd sort of scribbled down a couple of lines which I thought were particularly sort of key. And one of them is that revenge is a core American value. I read that and I just kind of had to underline that.
that does get quite a laugh, actually.
Yeah.
Certainly with the Bay Area audience.
Yeah, totally.
And, I mean, part of it is laughing because it's funny, and part of it's laughing because, oh, God, it's true, isn't it? But then,
it's funny 'cause it's true.
Yeah.
But is it, but then you can expand it out. Is revenge a core human value?
Yes.
There's so... You kind of have to wonder about that. And I wonder if I could
Yeah.
sort of toss that line out to you and kind of
Absolutely.
get some
Yeah.
responses to that line.
How does it hit you?
Well, I mean, just the whole nature of the eye for an eye thing, and of course, Gandhi's famous "an eye for an eye was everyone blind." Like, you think about it. If someone does something wrong to you, the first thing is, how did that make you feel, and what are you going to do back to them? Not like, what are you going to do? It's just back to them. So yeah, it's always it's all from like being a child. It's always been about revenge and how to make someone feel your pain and like let them know how you feel. The best way to do that is to do something back to them. And it's like you don't even think about it, but yeah, it's all about revenge.
Well, and for this play specifically, because the rest of the line, she says, revenge is a core American value, but I just don't want to hurt anybody. So she really is, those are
There's
the
the
two
conflict,
things
yeah.
where she's like, that seems to be based on her experience of the world, true to form, where we don't let things go away. You, as Reggie said, you deal with them right away in a vengeful way. And yet, I just don't want to hurt anybody.
Right.
So that's really Nan. And I
That's
think
like the core of Nan.
It is. It is. And it's also the core of the comedy of this play is, as you noted, it's not a dark comedy. It's a play. Why these people do not understand that they're in a comedy. They think that they are in a very serious melodrama.
Any comedy about what's worth its salt, the people don't know they're in a
Right,
comedy.
exactly.
Yeah, it's funny for the audience, not for us.
Exactly.
But for them especially, I mean, Nan means that. Like, she doesn't see how that's funny. She goes, these are the two things I'm dealing with. These are my epic problems. And I think that's part of the nature of the play is we laugh at it because you go, wow, true, and it's amazing that you're kind of leading with that.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is that, the idea of forgiveness, if you forgive an abusive husband, that kind of gives them carte blanche to continue the cycle of abuse. And so how do you, you have this idea that forgiveness is something which is a good thing. Being able to forgive somebody that trespasses is kind of what you want to aspire to in a way. And yet that doesn't give you an exit.
Right.
So to speak.
Yes. I like that. I like that train of thought.
So that's also kind of what the play is dealing with.
Yep.
And the ending, fairly early on in the play, it's given that the idea is that we're going to leave you tied up here and the bear's going to come in. And then people come in and say, are you really going to do that? Well, maybe. And you don't know if that maybe is to placate the person who's having doubts or if it's actually a sincere maybe.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, the question of the show is kind of, is Nan going to leave? And are the bears going to come?
And the bear's coming. Yeah.
Yeah, the bear is coming. But yeah, in that threat and even one of the things that I wanted to do, which one of the other characters in the play, Sweetheart, who says out loud, is that the bear is symbolic of a male-dominated world. And so she again means that completely seriously. It's hilarious when she says it. But it is true. This ominous sense of danger is what Nan is dealing with in this relationship. Yeah. And so that's kind of a very, very literal and hairy metaphor that is outside of their door. That bear is coming and it's mean and it doesn't care who you are and it's going to get you. And so that's really what she's battling. And and then, of course, as is Kyle, as he's sitting in the chair, hoping that they shut the door. Yeah. Yep.
So the play is going where from here?
We're going to go to Seattle, a theater called Arts West. We have a reading at Red Bull Theater in New York. That is October 31st. It's going to Theater 7 in Chicago. And a couple of places are, the life will kind of continue to roll after that.
And from the experience of the Crowded Fire production, do you have a sense of what you're going to tweak?
Not too much. I think we've done a really good job ironing things out here. There's maybe a few things. Again, sometimes it depends on the cast and the director's vision of the production. Or
the constraints of the space, perhaps.
The constraints of the space, sure. But I think a lot of that is more a director's job than the playwright's to change. So I think they're going to figure it out. But it's been a pretty amazing experience working with these two companies thus far and discovering a ton of things that you just can't know on your own, especially when you're in front of your laptop just thinking things out. You have to have fabulous people around you.
And also to kind of know how an audience gets it.
Exactly. Yeah, no, they're the fifth character, definitely. When they come in, it's you know things you didn't know, things you thought were funny are confirmed to be not funny.
Okay, we're going to keep going and not hold for a laugh there.
Not going to stop there. And then surprise of we're going to have to pause for 5 minutes every night after that one.
After this one.
Right, exactly.
Although then there's the moments where, okay, this is never going to get a laugh. I'm just going to barrel on through. And then there's that one night.
That one night where someone just laughs hysterically. And you're like,
I actually do need to pause.
Yes, exactly. And that's exceedingly helpful for me as a writer, too, to go, oh, well, we'll cut that. Or does this punchline deserve a minute-long lead-up? No. So let's get rid of that and move on. Or
does the punchline come 2 lines earlier? Do I actually need the follow-up lines to that?
Does it just get in the way? And this play is definitely one. And my writing in general, I like it to be pretty swift and kind of slim. I always talk about play yoga. You need to be strong and lean. So you kind of learning how the play really works is the gift of production and smart people around you.
Yes.
Yes.
Play yoga.
Yeah, play yoga, y'all.
Well, on that note, we are unfortunately starting to run out of time. We should reiterate the show is Exit Pursued by a Bear, being put on by Crowded Fire Theater over at Boxcar. September 7th through 17th is the remaining. Is that really? We're in September now, aren't we?
I know we are. Just
how did September happen so quickly?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
And you can go to crowdedfire.org for more information about that. Boxcar Playhouse is at 505 Natoma Street in San Francisco. We have been talking with playwright Lauren Gunderson and Reggie White, who plays Simon in the show. I'd like to thank both of you very, very much for coming.
Thanks so much. Y'all come on down.
Come on down, y'all.
And this is Arts in Review. I am Gregor Sharpin. Coming up in just a few minutes will be Tamara, who will take you up until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I had to find... When I basically went through this play, there was one song in particular that I thought would be an appropriate one to play. So, possibly not one you're thinking of. It's a song that kind of encapsulates the play in a very in the same kind of humorous way. So this is a little Chumbawamba to take us out. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
And he thrashed her black, and he thrashed her white. He thrashed her to within an inch of her life. And he slept like a log, did her husband. But as he lay and snored in bed, a strange idea came into her head. So she went for the needle and she went for the thread, and straight to a sleeping husband she started to stitch with a girlish thrill, with a woman's art and a seamstress skill. She pinned and tucked with an iron will all around her sleeping husband. Awoke with a pain in his head, he found he could not move in bed. Sweet Christ, I've lost the use of my legs. But his wife just smiled at her husband. Then she thrashed him black, she thrashed him blue, with a frying pan and the colander too, with a rolling pin, just a stroke or two. A battered and bleeding husband. Isn't it true what small can do, with a thread and a stitch and a thought or two? He's wiped his slate and his boozing's through. Goodbye to a drunken husband.